And I see a call to order and roll call. Should I just assume the
Mr. Mayor,
mantle
I
for
hate
that?
to burst your bubble, but isn't the chair still Carol?
Carol.
No, vice chair.
Yeah, but
The chair
yeah,
resigned.
you're
the
right.
chair resigned, and so technically, we have to elect a new chair
That's right.
and a vice chair tonight, unless you're well, we don't need a new vice chair unless you're elected chair. So we need to elect a new chair, so
Which
Carol
I agree.
has to call it to order and do the roll call, or ask me to do the roll call, and then lead us into the next item.
Okay, can we call the meeting to order? And can you do roll call, please, Ray?
Thank you. Carol Allen,
Here.
Jeffrey One,
Present.
David Ripma,
Here.
Victoria Rizzo,
Here.
Twyla Harrington,
Here.
Danny Stephenson,
Here.
Rich Allen.
Here.
Great, everybody is here and accounted for.
Woo.
Yay. Right, number 2 is elect a committee chair and vice chair. So, do I have any nominees for chair?
Well, if you've been vice chair, I nominate Carol Allen for chair, unless you don't want it.
Second. Get that out.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays?
Well, that was easy.
Go.
And then,
All right, so now.
Well, now you
vice
made more
chair.
work for yourself.
All right, any nominations for vice chair?
well, Jeffrey, were you vice chair? Weren't you vice chair?
No, I was no chairs.
You want to be vice chair? Or should we nominate you for?
I mean, somebody would probably have to do that.
I don't know
I'm
that
not
you
gonna-
can. I nominate Jeffrey for vice chair.
I'm not gonna turn it down.
This is Twyla, I second.
Okay, all those in favor of Jeffrey being vice chair?
Aye.
All right.
Any nays? All right, so moved.
In 1 minute, look at all we've accomplished.
I know.
Really?
This is great.
And, number 3 is public comment. No comment. Welcome. All right, so, number 4 is consent agenda, minutes.
Oh, did we have public comment? And there's people on Zoom too.
Oh,
I think.
I forgot Zoom, sorry.
I think. With just Paul, but
Paul, do you have any comments?
Not right now, thanks.
Okay,
perfect.
all right, so now we go to minutes, and, is there any comments on the minutes, or, any motion to accept the minutes?
I'll make a motion that we accept the consent agenda, 4.1 minutes, January 6, 2025, regular meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Okay. The minutes pass. All right, number 5, update on police contract negotiations.
Sorry, I'm making notes on the minutes. I was thinking I had the fire one first, because that would have been a lot faster. But let's delve into the police one right now. All of you know the history of our current fire contract with Multnomah County Sheriff's Office. And
Please contract.
Are we doing police or fire first?
police
Police, okay,
with Multnomah County, thank you.
okay.
And I don't know, has everybody seen my article that got below the fold, below the mayor's article in the Champion?
I did.
Oh, you didn't?
And then there's one out there, there.
I didn't look. Yeah, I talked to Chris Kaiser about it at the Outlook. It was primarily to inform the citizens of what's going on and let them know the struggles that we're having. I mean, this is, I think, the third article I've done in that vein in the last year. You know, you gotta keep repeating those things. But even though some people may push back and claim it was a public safety issue in 2015, as far as I can tell, especially in hindsight, that was a red herring. I don't know that the citizens are any safer now than they were with the Troutdale Police Department. The adding of a sergeant was, well, we needed a sergeant at the graveyard shift. I'm not really, that was never explained in all the minutes as to why that was important, especially when you consider that there was always sheriff deputies backing up our two officers, and there was always Gresham Police who were available for, call to back them up too. So there was plenty of coverage to back up our two officers in the middle of the night. But in looking at the minutes, it was pretty clear that it was to save money, but at the cost of giving up control. And the problem with giving up control is not just the day-to-day operations of our law enforcement here in Troutdale, but it's that everything is decided that impacts us comes out of the bowels of Fifth and Hawthorne, which is the Multnomah County's main offices. And the sheriff in that establishment kind of controls that. JVP's office controls the budget and the numbers. And so we're kind of beholden to them, and which makes it very difficult for us. Everyone has read the letter that we got from John. He's their business office manager down there. And I tried to read the letter and think through what he was saying and how he was describing the issues. And honestly, this is not pejorative at all. I didn't quite get it in terms of the overtime issue, how he never really answered the why question. In terms of, well, why isn't there enough deputies at regular time to cover all the shifts you know you have to have? That why never got answered. Why they need us to have 3 sergeants now, when 10 years ago they said we only needed 1.37 sergeants, and we've added nothing more to our patrol. So why do we need twice as many sergeants? They didn't answer that question either. And I'm going to provide to you 3 pieces of information that we're going to be moving into to talk to in a second. The first one is a draft of a letter that the negotiating committee, which as you recall is Dave, Jeffrey, Tanny, Ed, and myself. It's a draft of a letter I put together to respond to them. And, and that's the first one you're going to get by. So Victoria, if you could take that. There you go. Take that and pass it around. The second document that I'm passing around is my email exchange with the sheriff in the last 3 months, so you can have a copy of that. We'll talk about each of these individually as we go through. And the last one is my email to the chief deputy, Carrie Cares, a week ago. Victoria, one more to pass around. That gets all the way around there. Okay, before we get to the draft letter, I have to make sure we set the table to understand what we and I are dealing with. If you see on the top of the emails with Sheriff Nicole, you'll see that on January 31st, I sent her a nice email and just say that, I'd love to talk to her about more than just dollars and cents and numbers, because that's all John gives us. I said, I wanted to talk to her about the whole relationship issue, about the promises made to us back in 2015, and what we gave up for that, to help her understand that as our elected sheriff, where's the obligation to work better with us in understanding that there's more than just dollars and cents involved in this relationship. I was just going to take 15 minutes just to let her know and give her the information. She responded back after that, essentially saying, wanted to just leave me with John. I've tasked my team to manage the contract process with one point of contact to ensure continuity and consistency of communications. I'd be happy to schedule a meeting after the next contract negotiation meeting to provide both of our teams sufficient time to further discuss public safety, blah, blah, blah. And they take pride in their public safety. Okay. And then I follow that up with, I'm following up again to see if we can meet. I just said, I just want to meet. Thanks. I mean, I've never had this problem with the sheriff before. She always was willing to meet within a reasonable period of time, have coffee or just chat. And then that last email,
Really appreciate that last one.
yeah, nothing. Absolutely, she didn't respond to that at all. And she has met with me about 3 months ago, she met with me with Chief Deputy Cares, who is the second in command in the patrol division. And he was telling me then that, you know, I should just go directly to Carrie. He used to be a Troutdale officer, if I had any issues, her second in command. So I sent Chief Deputy Care this email, very direct email, as you can see it. My negotiating committee is very frustrated. First, your boss refuses to talk to us, and John is not listening to us. Can I meet with you as soon as possible? That was 7 days and 2 hours ago. No response. Nada. Not even a go pound sand, Ray, which is kind of what the sheriff told me. In a very nice way, I will say. So this is what I'm dealing with among the number 1 and 2 people down at the sheriff's office. We've seen what we've gotten from the head of the business office, who the sheriff has tasked with being the person to carry the water on this contract. And we're getting to the point where I know a number of you, especially the people who saw this on Friday when I sent it out to my draft, is that we would really love to have better and more details on stuff. I'm just afraid that we're just chasing our tails doing that. We've tried this. It's now been almost about 10 months since we gave them our first proposal, and we still don't have the detail or explanations that we want. And I talked to Ed about this, and he kind of agrees that maybe it's time to take a different tack with the sheriff's office. And if you look at the letter, the draft letter, I know it's a, if you want to take a few minutes to look through it, why don't we do that, if you don't mind, Madam Chair?
Yes, that would be good.
This is the one that starts John.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's just a draft in Word form.
Well, does this represent Ed's proposal for a different tack, or is this?
Yeah, well, that's what Ed and I discussed it today, and, because I just wanted, you know, because I appreciate, you know, the comments that Jeffrey and Tanny, and I agree with them 100%. We need more information, we need more, they're not giving us, they're not answering the questions very well that we struggle with. And I think one of the things we struggle with out here is that we were sold a service for sheriff that no longer is what they're offering in some ways. It's a different approach to us then, and so we keep going, why you keep changing the rules on us now? Why are you approaching us differently? And as a policy level, they're not explaining that well to us. And I appreciate the numbers. Tanny and I looked at the numbers for their increases on each FTE. They've told us what a deputy costs, they've told us what the captain costs, and those increases have been about 1.7, Tanny, what, 1.7, 1.8%? I mean, they've grown substantially. Inflation rate in the last 10 years has only been 1.33.
I mean, you look in the last 10 years, right? The captain's gone up 74.79%, sergeant 87.6%, deputy 93.69%, records people 78.73%.
Like I said, if you look at the inflation rate total for the last 10 years, it's 33%. So these are 2 to 3 times the actual inflation rate of the last 10 years. And as you see in this letter, it's like, it doesn't make any sense. And our last letter to them said the same thing. So what I'm suggesting is we need to discuss is taking a different approach, saying, we're tired of this game. We're not getting what we want. Let's just tell you what we can afford. Now, if I understand that if you say, here's $4.8 million, just tell us what we get for it, they're not gonna go back and say you get 25 records techs. That's not gonna happen.
But would anything surprise you at this point?
No, but I would think they would come back with a thoughtful analysis. All right, if this is all they can afford, this is what we could give you. And then at least we have another starting point to go from at our price number, because it's what you do, as I said in here, they keep pushing on us. As you saw from their letter, they says, we can't do it for any less with your law enforcement needs, you have to have this. Telling us what we have to have in that letter, that email from John that was in your packet. And as we do with everything, budgetary wise, yeah, we would like to have a lot more in this city, but if I can't afford it, I ain't gonna get it. And I don't think they get that. And we're just hoping for them to, all right, fine. I hate to use the vernacular, but you know, you kind of put the turd in their pocket. Okay, this is all we got. What do we get for it? You know, and see what they come up with. I don't know, you know, let them decide what they think we can get for that amount. Honestly, I will tell you, as you know, see from the letter there, and Ed and I have talked about this, Ed's given me a legal opinion on this. They're gonna have to come when we call 911 anyway. Now, that's problematic because if we don't pay them $4 to $5 million for next year, they may cut deputy positions, which may make it a slower response time to us out here. That's kind of the risk you take in that regard. But in reality, I'm not sure that the county's patrol division would actually cut positions at this point. That they may just still have to keep coming with the same numbers because they'll have to lay off deputies. And so they've got that problem, lay off deputies and move out of our building. So it creates a different problem for them with this kind of response.
Go ahead.
Question, when we talked last week, you talked about contacting this Carrie Care.
Yes.
Cares.
Yeah.
And with some potential hope. And his silence, you know, you've
Speaks volumes.
mentioned here, but I mean, can't you call him up? I mean, what's
can.
going on?
I
I
can.
think that seemed like it was worth trying to get a realistic read on what's going on. There must be something going on, but today at the bridge.
I'm looking to see if I have his phone number in mind. I won't call him
Right.
now, but.
Well, please, go ahead, but I mean, we really are pretty desperate for some answers, but you seem to have hope that because he had been a Troutdale police officer and you knew him personally,
Yeah.
that at least you could get some sort of background information about what the hell, is going on.
Yeah, it's just, it's odd that I'm not able to get any face-to-face meetings with number 1 or 2 down there
Yeah.
now.
Is CARE, number 2?
Yeah, well, what they have there, my understanding of the way it works down there is they have several chief deputies, which are number 2. One chief deputy is over the business office like John, one chief deputy is over the corrections division, I don't know who that person is, and one chief deputy is over the patrol division, which is Carrie.
Oh, okay.
And so he's the one who directly is involved with the patrol division, which is what we're hiring.
All right, the other thing that's just coming to mind, because down at the bridge, the Stark Street Bridge opening, our county commissioner, Vince Jones Dixon, was there, and his staff, and they were all just eager to be helpful. And so I kept bringing up the sheriff's, we can't get any answers out of the sheriff's office. And for what it's worth, they said, well, let us try to intercede. I don't think they have any real political pull, but you never know. But we've got to try it. I mean, they seemed willing to, after all, they do approve the sheriff's budget. They don't.
That is the one leverage they have.
Yeah, and the county commissioners do. And so the sheriff can do what she wants with organizing the department anyway, I suppose. But as far as the actual budget, the county commissioners have the final say, and it's worth a try. And I'm quite willing to call and say that you're going to be calling, or whatever, whoever, that we actually are being stonewalled by the sheriff's office, all the chief deputies, all the chief assistants to the assistant chiefs, and everybody else, and we're getting no answers, and we can't afford, the proposal they're giving us is not even in the realm. Same service, twice as much, or something, and we could give it a try.
I did brief our commissioner and Brendan, his assistant, about 3 weeks ago. I had
Okay.
a video call with them and I briefed them. And so they
Well,
seemed
they
to,
seemed to be aware
Yeah.
of the issue, but were maybe hopeful, but they did say to me, at least,
Yeah.
call, we'll try to help if we can.
Okay.
So I'm not optimistic they can, but I was optimistic your personal relationship with this Carrie Cares was gonna maybe get us some answers at least, and I'm really disappointed.
well,
to hear that it didn't.
and I thought I had a good relationship with the sheriff. But I can't even get an audience with her now, just
No.
to have her tell me, go down the hall and talk to John.
Yeah.
And John is a nice person, but he's under marching orders to recover costs
No,
and do everything he can to at the numbers. And he just keeps saying, these are the numbers, this is what it cost us. Not understanding the political, relational issues that are involved here and how much their costs have skyrocketed for reasons that we can't comprehend.
did this go out yet? Is it-
No, it's a draft. I'm not gonna send it till everybody has a chance to weigh in. I guess it's public now.
Well, I certainly like the ending about please vacate the building by July 1st. If you're not gonna renew with us on some reasonable terms.
Well, we need to raise that as, this is what we're thinking, people.
Yeah.
And maybe to get I'm trying to get their attention, to talk to us from a policy point of view, promises point of view, and relationship point of view. And John, bless his heart, doesn't care or get any of that stuff.
Now, well, I will say, I mean, the one feedback I get, and maybe you all are getting this, is, well, we own this building, can't we recover some of the money that way? It's just a drop in the ocean is the trouble. Yes, we could raise the rent, and we probably should, but honestly, we're looking at drops in the ocean. So while we need to push on that, it's not shouldn't be our main effort. I wish it could.
Yeah, and my only, I say, don't mean it really a pushback is that we've tried this numbers game with them for 10 months now. And we're no closer to getting this figured out, and I'm just thinking it's time to take a different tack with them. I don't see a downside.
No, I don't
So right
either.
there, it's $6.7 million now, almost $3 million more than we're paying this budget year for the exact same service.
Yeah,
And it's like, it's not making sense to us in the numbers. It doesn't make sense in the budget. We can only do what we can do, guys
Yeah, I
and
mean,
gal.
I'm a little fed up, so whatever I say is gonna come across as a little brash, but, first, I don't think that, I personally don't agree with just saying like, we'll give you this and you figure out what to do with it. I think that without understanding numbers and having context and having some real, solid data that supports that behind it, I still like agree 100% with Tanny and all these numbers, like, you can't just, I don't agree with it, and I can't get behind that. Second is that we, as the city, are tasked with providing citizens with services and support to make their lives livable and better, and or better. And the county is tasked with the same thing. They shouldn't be recovering costs. Whatever it costs for them to provide service is what we should do, and we should be working together. And by them stonewalling us, not responding, is not working together. It's not operating in good faith. It's not negotiating in good faith. Their lack of responses, their lack of data given to us is abysmal, and they should be ashamed of themselves. And I hope they're listening to the 4 people that are listening to this. They should be ashamed. And by not giving us the data so we can make an adequate and educated decision on what we need to do. So that being said, I'm of the notion right now that we have like 3 options. We can go with this or give them whatever money they want. That's an option. For maybe 4. We can do what Ray is kind of suggesting as a different tactic. I think that that's an option. I don't agree with the large 20% increase because I want to.
Well, what you just said, I would just propose that I can take those 2 sentences and I can make it more vague.
Sure, and that's fine.
We're only able to handle, an increase of blah to blah that gets us to about there to there, which is a huge increase for our budget. You've got to help us, you got to work with us to come up with what we can get for that. And make it a collaborative and give them a range without nailing down a number.
Another option that I think we have is something that's in the middle between nothing and this, which is maybe we do half. Like, we want half the coverage we get now. And we don't care that you say that that's not within police standards, like they've said in some of these. I don't really care. This is what we want. And what we are gonna do is we are going to spend all of our time reestablishing the Troutdale Police Department. And then the other option is to tell them to go pound sand. And we're not gonna do anything. And I think we had kind of talked about maybe some options of some sort of like, security company or some, that they could patrol or something to that effect to help have a presence, but we don't do anything, and we put all of our time and effort into reestablishing the Troutdale Police Department as fast as possible. We don't have to ask
Even if it's on a limited scale, what we can afford.
as soon as we can start getting that going, we don't have to ask the citizens for any money because we're not spending this $4.5 million over the next, over a year for the next 2 years. We have potentially could have $9 million to go all in and do the Troutdale Police Department. Now, what does that look like down the road, and how do we pay for those things? I think that's conversations we still need to have for everything, but those are like the options to me, and I am just like tired of Ray not getting responses in good faith and us being treated like they don't want to deal with us. If they don't want to deal with us, then I don't really want to deal with them.
Well,
So, sorry,
they have no understanding of our basic problem is the huge increase in our ability to afford it. Any good salesperson who sells you something, a car, a trailer, a house, whatever, needs to know what you can afford and helps match. No, you say, you hire a realtor, I need to find a house, and I only have $500,000 to spend, and they start showing you $1 million houses, and they say, well, your large family has to have this. You're gonna go find another realtor. That realtor doesn't give a dang about what you need. It's more about what they want.
But the problem is that none of the numbers to us make sense.
Right.
None of the numbers make sense with, when you look at their budget, none of the numbers make sense in terms of like the reality of the world and inflation over the last 10 years. And so when none of that makes sense, it doesn't make sense for me to get behind anything until, look at the citizens, this one guy that's here, sorry. Look at him and be like, hey, you know what, you're getting what you deserve and you're getting the best bang for your buck. And please live here. Like, I can't look at anybody right now and be like, these are good options, until I have more information. If we had that information and it was very clear, I could get behind some of these increases, but I just can't.
You mentioned $9 million, that we would eventually, I assume, over a couple of years, not spending the full amount. Roughly what?
Well, if we are gonna just like what Ray said right here, so we would up to get the same service, it'd be $4.785949 million.
20%, just a random 20% increase.
So let's just say it's 4.5 for easy math. And we, over the next 2 years, because we've talked about it's gonna take 2 years to reestablish the Troutdale Police Department. We're not gonna pay you $4.5 million. You're gonna just come here and give us your services. We're not gonna have an IGA with you, like we said here. No IGA, you are gonna be out of our building, and we don't have, so that's $9 million over the next 2 years.
I just wondered where you got.
Yeah, I mean,
And we
during
had
that
talked
time, we're gonna have to
about-
So
spend
you're
pretty-
thinking no contract of any kind, not even.
Saying it's an option.
Not even half.
Half was one of the options, so if you took half of that, we would have $4.5 million, and I think, if I'm remembering correctly, Ray said, if we had $2 million to help reestablish the Troutdale, to get all the equipment and everything going, well, if we had 4.5, that's a really good start over the next 2 years to get us that, we don't have to ask citizens for any more money.
The 2 to 3 million that the consultant study said it would cost, that doesn't go toward actually providing any police coverage
Yeah.
for us, and so,
Not if we're not gonna spend it.
yeah, and then.
It's
and
also
right-
on the high
We're
side.
basically like taking 2 years of a kind of a downturn, and I realize that the idea of that can be scary, and I'm not negating that. Like, and I think then in the back of my mind, I'm like, word's gonna get out that Troutdale is not as covered as it once was, and does crime move in? I don't know, but
And maybe we create a police department that only has one officer on the road 24/7.
Sure.
And has one sergeant 24/7, so we have two.
in the beginning.
Yeah,
But what
in
I'm
the
saying
beginning,
is that Ray has been stonewalled, we have been stonewalled, and I'm at the point where I'm ready to take action. I'm ready to do something like this and tell them, if this is what we're willing to do, either you can work with us, or this is what we're doing. So,
I think it's somewhat similar to what Ray's proposing, that a small modest 20% increase, tell us what you can give us for that.
Work with us as
It's
to what that
similar,
means,
it's
yeah.
similar.
That's not what he's
Either
saying.
way, it's gonna get their attention that, whoops, we're not gonna get the full contract. Sorry, I interrupted.
Rich?
I'm just checking to see if I'm missing something here. So it happens. So our sheriff is saying that they want one point of contact, but aren't specifying who.
Well,
And
John, they have the business division, is the one she means by the one point of contact.
Oh, okay, it's not specified, but that's an inference, this
Yeah.
is John. And because it also says that she's willing to talk to you after the next contract negotiation, but I take it that's too far out.
Well, yeah, we don't have it, because
We're feeling
they
squeezed
got
for
the
time.
last response, and what are we gonna do? They basically said, no, pay it or pound sand, I guess. He didn't come back with any reduction in the 6.7 they gave us before, so we're at a stalemate.
Stalemate, but she is offering to talk after the next contract negotiation. When is that?
We don't have one scheduled.
That is a problem.
Because John sent this, remember, 2 weeks ago, we finally got this response that was supposed to be more information to explain stuff to us. They really didn't give us any more information. I mean, John offered to come talk to council and answer questions, but I think we're just gonna get what's in his letter.
Right, because
Yeah.
he's the business person, right?
Right.
The numbers person. So he can't make the decisions.
No,
He can just tell you numbers. And then Carrie may not be able to speak to you because he's not identified as one of the one points of contact, right? So I see your point, we're stuck.
yeah.
And you're just trying to get it unstuck.
Yeah, like I said, John, bless his heart, is great with numbers, but he doesn't understand the policies, the promises, and the relationship issue. That has no value
Right.
to
right.
him when he's crunching these numbers.
Not the appropriate person for
Right.
the spot that we are in.
The elected official is the one, the sheriff, the one whose position, not her, but the position made all these promises to us 10 years ago. That's where the policy and the promises came from, and the relationship was built, and that's not being factored in here.
And what does she mean by contract negotiation meeting? What's that entail? Is this,
What we
is
got-
this something you can just call up on the phone and say, hey, we're having that contract negotiation?
No, yeah, no, well, traditionally in the past, Ed and I have gone down and met with them at the sheriff's office. That happened toward the end of December. We met with them. They had 3 people. They had their county counsel who oversees law enforcement, and they had their business manager, and then they had their one of the other business people in the office met with Ed and I. And I say they're all wonderful people, but the county is apparently screaming for money, covering every contract cost, and is trying to squeeze everything out of their contracts. And as I told you before, the county says, we really don't think we want to have this relationship in 3 or 4 years.
Right, right.
Doesn't seem like it.
So, along with the negotiators, right? I just want to say you're doing a wonderful job. I sure appreciate your efforts here.
Thank you.
It's not lost on me.
I'm just frustrated with not being able to get any movement from them to understand the incoherent, the non-black and white issues that are involved here.
Hence the John letter here is to try to break up that logjam.
Yeah, yeah.
I understand.
Well, in the past, when we were down there, I sent them all the council meetings from March of 2015. So they could see, this is the environment in which we trusted you with the safety of our citizens. All these promises, and now all these numbers are just like, you're getting all your money back now.
Yeah, this is the kind of thing, of course, you remember I was worried about at the time.
Yes,
It is what it is, but you're doing great. So I get it
I
now.
will-
Thank you for clarifying.
thank you. Absolutely, you, the mayor, and Councilor White were the 3 no votes. And you raised issues like this. This looks too good to be true. I think that's a quote from Mayor Ritma.
Yeah,
Was.
it was, yes.
And it's once they get you trapped, well, we don't have a way out. And we have to claw our way out or something. But I just frustrated that the movement is very slow. I mean, for them, their patrol division budget's $190 million or something, and we're $4 to $7 million of that.
Yeah. It does sound like the sheriff is willing to engage with you, but we gotta nail that down, and it's not.
It doesn't to me, it doesn't sound like.
Well, I don't know what she means. The next, but we haven't had any movement. We're stuck now because we can't pay. John is still at 6.7, and we can't pay it. See, the thing I'm struggling with, we already went down, looked at them face to face. They were at 6.7. We get all those reasons why we can't do this. We want this information. They came back and again just said, "Those are the numbers." You know, that's kind of the quote in that email back from them is, "Those are the numbers." So nothing has changed on their end. We're at an impasse, as they say. Nothing is, so there's a next meeting with John wouldn't accomplish anything. Because he's just gonna say, these are the numbers. Whether we believe them or not, or they make sense or not, that's the numbers he's using.
Right.
And I'm not saying they're dishonest numbers, they're hard to believe. But then again, a lot of things the county does, I find hard to believe sometimes. I'll just say that generally.
I would agree, I would agree with you there.
So until we get the electeds involved, sheriff, Commissioner Jones-Dixon, and/or Jessica Vega-Peterson involved, we're not gonna make any movement with John.
Yeah, I take it John has the close relationship with the sheriff that you may not have at this point.
Yeah,
By sending this letter, that kind of jolts him into talking to the sheriff, and maybe they reach out to you for a meeting.
right, because this becomes a bigger issue, becomes that, like I said, it's a policy issue that is gonna cause problems for the sheriff's office. If we don't pay them, they may have to lay off people.
I think what would jolt him more, Joan, and maybe to the sheriff, is Jeffrey's approach. Do you really want our business or not?
I think
We're
I
at
tried to
that
say that
point.
nicely.
Well, you are, but you do
You can
kind
say it
of,
nicely, I won't.
you kind of circumloculate around it, and eventually get to a modest increase, but I'm thinking it could be even shorter and blunter that, look, we've tried everything else. We want to know, are you interested in serving Troutdale under a contract or not? Because we can't work with what you're showing us, but perhaps you don't need us. Something like that. I
Well,
mean,
it
would
does
be,
get
it's
to
worth
the
a
point,
try.
doesn't it?
Well, it would.
Yeah.
Well, I'm adding that to the end
I'm
of the
not
second
sure I like the
paragraph.
answer, but it does get to the point.
Well, it might focus their minds on getting us being more reasonable. It might not, but
Twyla, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I was just gonna add from a citizen's perspective, I do support Jeffrey's idea, but as a citizen, I would be more okay with not having an IGA if we did still have the deputies out of this building, because I think if they had to relocate somewhere like Scappoose or somewhere like that, we would not see the amount of response that we do having them right here. So I do think that would provide that layer of safety that we might lose if we evicted them.
well, I remember John Wilson was big on, oh, they'll be driving around town coming here all the time. So we'll have tremendous traffic enforcement. We'll have deputies all over the place.
Month of February, they wrote 19 tickets in
Yeah.
the city of Troutdale.
Big deal, yeah, right. Anyway, however, I agree with you that if we're gonna really play hardball, we don't need to say you have to be out of the building. We could just be silent about that and say, let's work that out, if it comes to that.
I just think they need, the unspoken, we have to let them know, do you realize that this is where that may come if we don't reach an agreement? I don't think they understand, what are they gonna do when they don't have a place to go?
You know,
It's a really important point that Twyla's bringing up here, but wouldn't we need the building if we didn't have their service?
Yeah.
Well,
At
we'll
least a
need it
portion of it?
for the
At least a
police,
portion.
our police department.
Yeah.
That's what it was built for.
Victoria,
Yeah, I was just gonna say the same thing,
you raising your hand?
that we,
10 minutes ago.
sorry, that we would need the building to start, I was looking up the cost of everything. And if we did have that 4.7 million, we can start right away. Getting a car, getting an officer, actually.
Hire a
getting
chief, the first thing, hire a chief.
Yeah, getting a couple, I mean,
Yeah.
that's a lot of money we can, and we would need the building. And yeah, their presence here is seen here. But as you know, from our survey from PSAC, it's not seen anywhere else. And from that survey too, it sounded like people would rather have our own.
Yeah.
Tammy,
Okay. Couple of things, even bad negotiations go better than this. And this is like beyond unprofessional. You're asking for almost $7 million and we have questions and you can't answer them. And an example would be, you want to charge us 1.5 million for overtime when they're paying 8.9 million for overtime. That's 12.9% we would pay on 748 FTE when we have 21 and a half. I mean, really? And the sheriff's budget is 210 million, and that includes the 335 deputies in corrections. That includes the 32 for TriMet, that includes the River Patrol, that includes all of it. It's 210 million. And so, I mean, looking at this, like a captain's gone up 162,000 in 9 years, sergeant 142, deputy 118. I mean, that includes benefits, but really?
That's the increase?
That's the increase.
Okay.
That's the increase. Here's the thing, okay, you can be a business person, you can be a numbers person, you can be anything, and you can be a third grader, and A and B at some time has to equal C. And it clearly doesn't. And so and then you ask a question of why doesn't this equal it, they're like, we're not gonna tell you, we don't know. It's none of your business. And, I wrote in my little note here, this is the biggest thing in the general fund. This is the most important thing that we do. And I also don't believe in going in with the hat in the hand, because I don't know what we're gonna get. You look at now, we're supposed to get this coverage, we're not getting it. We're clearly not getting what we're contractually supposed to get today. And then we're gonna say, well, just give us what we can. I don't think that's gonna put us in a very good position either. And also too, at the end of the day, it's gonna be the budget committee, ultimately the council, that's gonna decide how much money to put into law enforcement. It's really not us. Sorry. We make a recommendation, but they're the ones that have gotta find the funds to make this thing work. And they may decide to cut, Twinkie Day or something, I don't know. To put another cop on the street if necessary. But I can just tell you, I've gone through this thing, I've gone through the county's budget, and it's a very frustrating process. It doesn't make sense. And what's more frustrating to me is what Ray's going through. And it's just, the whole thing, frankly, is just unacceptable.
Yeah, when I look at the numbers, we started off with roughly 2.8. At the regular inflation rate, it would be like 3.75. That's pretty much what we're paying, is 3.75. So what we've paid for the last 10 years has kept up with inflation.
Yeah. Our contract has gone up 1,161,032.35%.
It's roughly about 1.
That's not a bad increase
No, it's about
over the course of time.
Right, percentage-wise, though, it's about 1.34 or 1.35, and inflation's been 1.33. So it's, like I said, it's kept up with inflation.
We've been pumping it to like 30 point whatever,
Yeah.
For the last
3.4%, yeah, for the last 10 years per year.
Yeah,
That's pretty realistic.
If you just check the rate of inflation total from 2015 to now, you put it into your computer, it pops up, it gave me up 3.33%. Adding up all the inflation, all the different years, lows and highs.
I went and did it year by year.
Fine, I don't want to do the math. My AI tells me the total.
I'm just saying, I think it's very frustrating, and I know we're a little kid, but it isn't bullying like on its way out now?
Well, the other question I have is, if we decide to just go ahead and do our own police, my understanding, talking to some police officers, is that it takes 1 to 2 years to get a car. It's not quick. And so we really gotta look at what it's going to take, what do we do in the interim time? Because we can't get cars, and they're not gonna replace, our original contract talked about them replacing the cars. I mean, let's get real, it's 10 years. I mean, those cars are not gonna last 10 years. And so it's a huge process of trying to build our own police, but at this point, looking at all this, I'm like, let's start.
I was gonna say, I've talked to retired Troutdale police, Gresham police, Portland police, and they're retired. I wasn't like stopped by them or anything, okay, so. And some of them are on contracts working with those municipalities now. And they've looked at the Jensen report, and they've looked at our situation, and some of them are even working as close as Gresham, And they're saying you could have this whole thing up and going within 2 years for actually less than the Jensen proposal.
Well, good, because
They
things
go,
always cost more in the future,
Yeah,
so I'm
they're
glad.
like,
they have-
it's not that hard to do, but you just can't do it overnight.
Right. Well, and like I said, when I look at Happy Valley, who's in a contract with Clackamas County Sheriff's Office, this year they're paying approximately $5.5 million, but they have 10,000 more people who live in their city. They have a 26,000 plus population versus our 16 plus. And they're paying barely more than we are.
It's a bigger area too, like.
Oh, it's a really bizarre area. If you ever look at their city limits,
Yeah.
it looks like a jigsaw puzzle. But yeah, and they literally have control of what those deputies do when they're in the uniform of Happy Valley.
And something else too, just the information in general that we're getting. Okay, example. Had someone down by my place, and there were 6 sheriff's deputies' vehicles, 3 Gresham vehicles, and it was someone that had broken into a house with a weapon. And it doesn't make the report. And Captain Asbo said when he was asked about it, well, yeah, that didn't make the report.
That, how many cars were there?
There was 9. 6 sheriff, 3 Gresham. And then another situation, and you guys that are on public safety know this happens all the time. You've got a situation where you got multiple cars, and you're looking on the report, where is it? Not there. Didn't happen. Yeah, it did happen, but for some reason, I mean, the information that we're getting in general is just not accurate.
You could find that information if you bury into the GPS data for every car on that shift. But then again, you have to go over to Gresham too to find out who came over here to help
You
out.
could, but this is supposedly generated on call data. And so they just came down without being called, with lights and sirens and everything? I find that hard to believe. And it's not just 1 or 2 of these, right? I mean, there's like a lot.
Anybody on Zoom have a comment?
Doesn't look like Zach or Frank or. There's Frank.
Hey, Frank.
Hey, yeah, I mean, I've been putting a lot of thought into this because I'm working with multiple jurisdictions down on the Chalk Trail. The 911 process, the 311 process, everything's failing right now. I mean, I have to go to Starbucks to get a hold of the sheriff's department is sometimes the best option. So from a guy on the road riding his bike or doing a run, it's not working. We got to try something different. My concern is what's going to happen in a year, what's going to happen in 2 years, and it's only going to expound. I don't think it's going to get any easier. So I really like where Jeffrey's going with this. And the question is for me is like, how do the other citizens feel about that? I mean, I'm a white male, that feels comfortable in the space, but I don't know how, like Twila, how would she feel about that? And how would some of the other, more marginalized communities feel about that? I don't know. I think we got a lot more issues and I think we can deal with those better on our own. And quite honestly, I think that's the East County way. I think we can take care of it on our own better than we can relying on Multnomah County oversight. And we already have the oversight. I guess that's my point. They're already here and we're paying more for what? And that question keeps coming up for me. So that's just my perspective as a citizen or a resident and having spent 9 months dealing with the issue. So.
Thanks, Frank. Rich?
If nobody else is there.
Zach?
Yeah, hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right,
Yeah, no, no.
fantastic. Well, hey, yeah, I know I've spoken with a couple of you on this here and there, but I kind of would like to echo what Jeffrey was saying as far as just the need for kind of some additional leverage in a sense where we kind of based on the feedback that we had from the community.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Call me tomorrow and tell me what you're going to say. But when you appear on and you start discussing it with us, that means I've got 4 council members in the room. And this is a public meeting. It's already been proposed, but it's not been listed as a meeting of council, a majority of council members. So we apologize. I apologize, Zach. I should have caught that before I got people throwing things at me here in the room.
It's quite all right. Thanks for clarifying. I'll talk to you guys later.
Public meeting issue.
Sorry, Zach.
Like I said, it's already listed as a public meeting, but we're kind of skating the boundaries here because it's not an actual council meeting. We have 4 council members commenting. So, yeah, make notes, Zach, and get them to me later.
You got it.
Paul?
Yeah, I'm glad you guys caught that. I was just taking a council count myself. Glad you caught that right.
All right. Oh,
Rich?
All right, so this doesn't account for the gulf, the difference in price, right? But it is a piece of information I'm missing. Since this agreement, of course, we've had inflation, but we've also had defund the police, riots, a number of political decisions that made the streets more dangerous. And so it's harder to recruit officers than it used to be. So the question I have is how much have wages for officers changed? It might be a little bit below, I mean, it might be a little bit above the normal inflation rate. And I realize it doesn't account for the gulf in the prices, but it would be a nice detail to have.
Tammy,
If, back to A and B equals C, these numbers don't add up,
No, they don't.
and I'll just leave it at that.
Even with what I just said, they don't add up.
No.
I know that. But it would be nice to know. Just so
Well, you
we-
know what you're paying them. I can tell you that
Oh, good point.
by position. And by position 10 years ago or 5 years ago or whatever, all that data is available. But to what we're getting charged, it doesn't click.
All right. So I could do the calculation as far as percentage.
okay, so before we go on to the next one, I have to agree with, Juan. I mean, we have to do something. And, I'm leaning towards, I think it's time that we look at Troutdale and we start from day one and trying to figure out how we're gonna do that. Is my 2 cents.
Couple things, what I heard, and I'll get this to the contract committee of Ed, Tanny, Mayor, and Counselor One. What I heard is that I will go ahead and I will add up closer, farther up in the letter, the basic question, we just don't really feel like you really want to continue serving the community. I'm gonna take those 4 paragraphs where I do exactly what I've been suggesting we shouldn't worry about, which is arguing over numbers again, and just be very vague about this. We just don't get it. We just don't understand where you're getting this stuff. It doesn't make any sense to us. And then at the end, take out specifics of what we're offering, but we're saying, we've kept up with inflation, this is so much higher. We can afford more than an inflationary increase for next year, but it can't be at the level you're asking for. It's impossible for our budget to absorb it. So you're gonna have to work with us to get a better number. And then send that letter.
Shorter and more blunt.
Yes, yeah, that's what I heard. And just also so you know, Ed and I work really well together on this. Ed just sent me a memo 5 minutes ago that I talked to him earlier about what would it look like if we tried to ramp up a quick police department and supplement it with private security. And he's got me a memo. I haven't read the memo yet. I just kind of glanced at what he said. There is a path forward. It's going to take a lot of work, and I don't know the bumps along the road, but you know, with the backdrop of knowing, as far as we can tell from the statute, the sheriff has to still respond when 911 goes out if we need him. We may have a path forward, and you know, we're on the record here. I don't know if the sheriff is listening or not, but at least we have a viable pathway forward. Which in any negotiation, you got to have a way out if it doesn't come to a contract. At least we have one that's arguably one that we could do, which we don't have with fire at this point. So.
I just wanna clarify, I wanna make sure that I'm being very clear in that sometimes we have to make hard decisions to get to greener pastures. And sometimes that means deconstructing your pasture and replanting grass. And that I don't want to discount the idea of what that means and potentially could mean, and I think exploring options like private security or a half police force to make sure that our businesses down here, I mean, I know that there's certain people come to our meetings, but I know that they've come and they've talked about, you know, people getting into their garbage or breaking into cars, and I think having a presence of that can help mitigate some of those concerns. But I think the most important thing is that we, one, would not have to ask for any more money from our citizens. We could just do it with the money that we're saving from doing this. And it's a tough 2 years, yeah, potentially. But one of the biggest concerns I had and the council has is where do we get this money from? How do we do this? How do we get to the end goal that looks like it's the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Like, you have to make hard decisions, and this could make that decision with money a little bit easier on the council or me, not having to ask people for more money than they're already giving, because there's other things that we're gonna have to do potentially. And so for me, it just gives me peace of mind that like, I'm ready to go here. I'm ready to throw down, and it's in the best interest of not only myself, but everybody else at this table, which is representative of our community. So,
Just be aware that I think if we're gonna go back, just knowing what we spent in 2015 for our own police department and just adding inflation to that, it's close to $6 million. So ultimately, to have a full-service police department like we had in 2015, it's gonna be in current dollars about $6 million.
and I think that we have an option too to work with our neighboring cities to potentially collaborate a little bit better together, and maybe that makes it a little bit easier on us and them, so it benefits everybody. Again, that's something to think about down the road, but I'd be much happier spending our money on ourselves as opposed to somebody else than the current situation.
Rent out.
Also, like, we're like, and I think Tanny has done a really good job, and it makes it's really helpful for me when he brings these numbers, and I've seen some of these numbers and they all collaborate, is that those numbers would make sense to us then. And it's like, if these numbers made sense to us, I think we could probably get a little more behind it with a little more understanding, but this way we would have numbers that made sense. We would be paying ourselves. We would be dictating what we as a community want from our safety officers. So, thanks.
Rich.
Okay, I think that was well said. Seems like we tasked the team. We've seen what that looks like.
Right, are we ready to move on to fire?
Sure.
It's the easy one.
Yeah, and fire, you've got, as you recall, I don't know, Dave, I don't think have we had this meeting since we talked to the 4 cities met together with the mayors and the city managers?
I don't believe so.
Okay, we gave a full report at the council meeting, 2 weeks ago, but just to do a quickie on it, the 4 cities met, city managers and mayors, a couple weeks ago, and it came down to, Gresham is really firm that they want to change the methodology. They want us to pay per capita, per head, per whatever, the exact same rate that the citizens of Gresham pay. What we've done for 30 years, as you recall, is we simply paid for what it costs them more to cover our areas. Well, now they want us to share everything beginning with $1, even though, as we've talked about before, they were gonna pay those expenses anyway. So even though they complain that, that they think they're subsidizing us, we've actually, their new model is, we're subsidizing them. Because if they didn't have us, like the example, they're still gonna have to pay a full-time fire chief, whether they cover us or not, but now we have to pay the incremental cost of their full-time fire chief. That's their approach, that's their methodology, it's different. The only thing that it has, it got them to at least think about it, they won't commit to anything, right? Okay, but give us an explanation of why and what you want to do in terms of a ramping up period of time to get to that point. Because as council's going to talk about next Tuesday at a work session, Troutdale's been able to go up until now without doing what 80% of the cities in Oregon have already done, which is have additional revenue streams or a fire district. And we're gonna have to talk seriously about it. Gresham has done that for the last 13 years. Gresham had their utility fee instituted in 2012, and they passed a local option levy last spring. So they've got 2 of those other legs of additional revenue. And they're looking at us going, all right, we've asked our citizens to pony up more. You guys need to pony up more too. If I was in their shoes, I can't say that's unreasonable. We don't like it and we don't think it's fair, but from their point of view, it's not too bizarre. So the bottom line came down to 3 cities were supposed to propose. You see those letters. Great, we appreciate it. My letters, my style, my letter's a little more direct and argumentative, trying not to be argumentative, knowing that they said, yes, they'll explain to us why and what break-in period. The 3 cities said, we'll approach them with the same break-in period. My logic was, well, it took Gresham almost 3 years from the time they started investigating additional revenue to get the local option levy passed. And so we want the same time to begin ramping up additional revenue to cover this cost. And so our proposal is pretty much the same as the other two cities. They want us to get to this number, which is $1.4 million more than we're paying now. And we'll say, well, we'll work that in over 3 years, where we'll pay 25% of the difference in the first year, 50% in the second year, 75% in the third year. Then in the fourth year of the contract, we'll be in your methodology where we're paying the same as Gresham residents. And the other reason it allows for us to actually explore our own Troutdale Police Department and see if the citizens want to do a local option levy. Because if we can get a local option levy that gets us, even half, of the $3 million to run a $6 million police department, let's just use those numbers. We're still paying $3 million out of our general fund, but that's $1 million less than we're paying now, which allows us to use that money for fire. And that's just a minimal. I'd suggest probably more than that for local option levy. But the idea is that we need that time to get these other ducks in a row. And so all three cities have pretty much offered the same thing for differing reasons. I mean, Wood Village is even in a bigger pickle because they can't even approve a utility fee without the citizens approving it. And that's something that city council, I think every other city in Oregon can do on their own. So they're really gonna have to do a lot of work to get there. So that's where we're at now. They have told me that they thank me, they've got it all. They're working on a draft of an IGA right now without saying whether they like our numbers or not, what they're gonna come back with.
Gresham?
Yeah, Gresham. Gresham saying, thank you, we're starting working on a draft. Okay, what numbers are you gonna put in the draft? They didn't say.
Did they have a council meeting yet?
No. Where I think their approach is going to be, it's the mayor and the city manager are gonna come up with a proposed agreement, and I'll just quote him, you were there, Mayor Stovall said a number of times, I know my council real well, I know my council real well. So whatever he and the city manager get to us to agree to, Mayor Stovall feels really comfortable that he can get it through council. And so that's it, and that's fine, it's their city, if that's the approach they wanna take, who am I to say otherwise? And I assume he does know his council, so.
This won't be a popular statement, but I'll make it anyhow. Those of you that are actually negotiating this thing, talking to people, I guess the question I have is, over the course of this 3 years, is our 43-second additional response time gonna go down to where Gresham's is? And what are we gonna own when we get into this model? Because right now we don't own anything. The citizens of Gresham do. They have a better response time than we do, but we're expected to pay the same. So what exactly is gonna change for the citizens of Troutdale?
But we get the exact same service for a lot more money.
I know, but if we're paying the same methodology that Gresham is, why are we not getting the same service?
Yep.
Why are we not having the same ownership structure? Hoses, trucks, equipment, that type of thing. We don't own any assets. We don't get a truck as fast as they do. So why are we paying the same?
I guess, Ray, and I just want to follow up that with what he said, and this is something that I've, for me, you guys have been around, I preach. That's fine, the numbers can be fine, whatever they are, but when do we talk about contract language and accountability, and I'm really into that. Where in the process does that play in, so we can address concerns like Tanny just brought up?
Well, because the other thing, and there's talk about forming a fire district. I mean, is that really something we want to do? Right now, we're getting kicked in the head.
Kenny, you're right. Since when do you have a contract without performance metrics or an idea of what value you get out of it? So.
Yeah, this is a whole mess, because I've said those same things. You've
I
seen my
know.
letters, my arguments, and they just kind of go, whatever. If you want our service, you're gonna pay this.
But I guess what I'm saying is, it's like you're dating, why would you get married?
Right, well, one of the problems with the response time, one of the issues with the response time is location of fire stations. Their fire stations are primarily located in the city of Gresham. There's just one in the 3 cities, for the whole 3 cities, even the 195th and Halsey helps out with that because it's right next to Fairview. But how do one of the ways to improve time is to have another station. Well, who's gonna pay for the station? Is Gresham residents gonna pay for our station? No. Are Troutdale residents gonna pay for a station for serving other people? There's no way to do a capital bond levy to build another station that makes sense. Fire District 10 owns our fire station. Their people aren't gonna vote to build one, because they're $10-15 million to build a new fire station. So that's
But
the
the other
problem we
question
have.
is, would they not be using the station up on Halsey and this station regardless?
They wouldn't be using the one in Troutdale if they weren't covering us.
They'd be using the one on Halsey then.
Yeah, because that's in the city of Gresham, yeah.
And they can't complain about this one because they're not paying anything for it.
It's part of their deal, whatever they're doing, because they cover Fire District 10. It's part of their deal. I haven't seen their contract, their new one, they just did a new one. It's part of the whole package. Gresham will provide service to Fire District 10. Fire District 10 gives them use of both fire stations to do that. So there's something in the paperwork that allows for that. So it's accounted for, I just don't know where. And so this is what like I said, we're gonna get a draft of an IGA to look at. They're gonna get that to us, hopefully in the next week or two is what I thought.
Yeah. I can't, like, even with the police contract, I mean, part of my thing, and I know I've kind of barked up the tree, like, without performance metrics in there, without language that holds them accountable and it represents our needs and our wants within that, it's really hard to, sure, I mean, part of maybe is agreeing on a number, sure, that's fine, but there's a lot of other things that are very important in that contract to make sure that we get what we want, get what we need, and to make sure that our needs are met. And you can't say, like, I think Tane brings a really good point, is that you can't say we're equal partners, but then you kind of, you kind of dabble out and you kind of do a little cheating over here, but it takes me a little bit longer to get home. Well, no, we are all on the same page. We're all on the same page. We all get equal time. And I think that if they want to play that, we should be playing that right back.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
So at this point on the fire contract, we're just kind of waiting to see what Gresham comes back with. We've done what we can.
When are we gonna hear from them?
I got the impression, I thought I had an email that said this, but I thought it was something like a couple weeks. They were thinking, because they got all the letters of February 28th. Let's see if I'm missing an email here.
You'd order some Cuban cigars.
Okay. Okay, here we go. Good morning all, blah, blah, blah. I will not be able to, that's between the same. As an update, I'm currently reviewing the 3 cities letters and anticipate getting back to all 3 cities by the end of next week with a final draft term sheet after conversations on my end, from which I can then work to red mark a new IGA for review and approval by everyone. So that would mean this Friday, he said he should get us a response.
And is that from Travis or Eric?
That was from Eric.
I just don't understand, when you negotiate, there's give and take on both ends, and I just feel like either party is not willing to negotiate. They're just gonna tell us what
When
they
you
want.
hold
and
all
that's
the
it.
marbles,
I just don't,
yeah, that's the problem with the situation Troutdale's in right now.
I think also the question was raised, do we really want to go to a fire district? I think in the long run, we're gonna have to go to a fire district. I mean, we were in a fire district until we signed on with Gresham. We're in a fire district for a long time, and it was, satisfactory.
So right now, you think that would be a good idea?
Well,
If they grant us the ramp up in costs, we might not need it for a year or two, but ultimately, we're gonna be stuck paying at Gresham's per capita rate for the foreseeable future. A fire district is the only way. Gresham, Tanny and I and Glenn met with Mike McKeel, who's Fire District 10. He was very big on fire districts, but there wasn't any realistic way to go into one right now. he wants Gresham to join the fire district. Gresham seems unwilling, but I think for Troutdale, if we want to look out for ourselves, we're gonna have to look in terms of having a fire district to provide long-term.
Well, most importantly, it gives us a vote. Our citizens get to vote on the board for the fire district if we're part of a fire district. We have no control now. Second of all, if the response time issue is ever gonna get addressed, we're gonna need to upgrade and maybe add another station. And that's the only way to do it, is through a fire district.
And I wanna just, the city of Gresham, I feel like doesn't want to get rid of their necessarily, but the Gresham firefighters do want it, they do support
Absolutely.
a fire
The
district,
union-
so I think it's just an
Made that
important
point too, yeah.
part of, it's just an important part of like the overall, and it just, I think that by doing that, what we're doing is we also, I don't wanna say free up money, but like, it's kind of a weird way of putting it, but we also like sort of free up money for the city of Troutdale to do tangible things within the city. You know, the budget's gonna be really hard this year, and we're gonna have to cut things, but it's like, what are the people getting, what are they gonna see, you know, like, whether it's a skate park, or it's a new park, or it's an upgraded, a play facility, like, you know, I think it's important to provide things for the people and tangible things that they can go and do, gets people outside, gets kids, you know, off the street and like doing things and engaged, keeping our programs going within the city and a rec and stuff like that. Those potentially could go away, but that would free up some money to continue doing those things and seeing the city grow in that realm. It's just in my thought process.
It would free up some money for the general fund, but, you know, the reason they want a fire district is it's substantially more income. Let's be clear about it. And it's a designated fund. You don't have to go in and argue for the general fund every year. But I mean, you look at it, what is the city now? Yeah, but what is the city now? 3.42, right, is our rate?
3.76 is our permit.
Okay,
tax
sorry,
rate.
3.76, and a fire district is probably 2.80.
They range from 2.4 to 2.7, 2.8 generally, yeah. That's the range, depending on which jurisdiction.
Okay, so it's not quite. So you take, what is that, the number 2 item on your tax statement, the city, and you're almost doubling it?
But you're still less than the city of Portland's permanent tax rate.
Great. Okay.
Understand, in
The
comparison.
city of Portland has the second highest tax rate in the country.
Well, I don't know that. No, in Oregon, they have one of the top tax rate in the Oregon, yeah.
The only city that has a higher tax rate than Portland is New York.
But if you.
I mean, do we want to walk
No,
that
no,
dog?
what I'm saying is, and we'll talk about this next Tuesday night, but if you look at Beaverton, Tigard, Wilsonville, and all the people in the Troutdale Fire District, their permanent tax rate plus their fire district rate are $5, $6, $6.50 per thousand, about what ours would be in a similar situation. So it's not just Portland, but all those other cities when you add those together. Everything's relative, but.
I would be much more amenable to this if it was Tualatin Valley Fire. Totally different conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, oh yeah, that's a different issue, but, you know, like I said, we'll talk about it next week, when we add these things into other cities, Troutdale's not an outlier if you add a fire district to our property taxes. I'm not saying would like it, or that we should do it, but just saying it doesn't make us outrageously more than anybody else, and put this in the ballpark with lots of cities.
But I'm just saying that's gonna be a tough sell to raise taxes that much and not reduce what the city's pulling.
Twyla, do you have anything?
No, I mostly agree that it's very, when we're talking about the fire and the increases without some accountability, that's just a hard pill to swallow. So I'm hoping that we can get some of that in our contract, and that I think will show some hope that they want to work with us.
Victoria?
I'm in agreement with what Todd said, and everybody else. And for a fire district.
What's that?
And for a fire district.
Just for context, Troutdale currently is a medium-sized city for the state of Oregon, meaning half the cities are larger, half the cities are smaller. But if you were to add Troutdale, Fairview, and Wood Village together, then we're in the upper half. of the size of the city in Oregon. If all the other cities can do it, we could do it too. Just putting it in perspective.
Frank or Paul?
When you say all the other cities can do it, you mean do a fire district or do not do a fire district?
They have fire service one kind or another. And someday I'd like to explore what Kenny's statement about FTU is. But,
Well, but even when I travel around Oregon, there's smaller cities that have 2,000 people and less, and they have a fire engine, they have control over.
well, I think they're sharing their county and city resources together.
Yeah, but they're working together.
Yeah, they're.
Might be volunteers or something.
You can look at Salem, I just know Salem because I go there and work a lot, but you have Salem Fire, Marion County Fire, and Kaiser, like, and they are all basically kind of the same, but you know, there's a lot of service there. It's just like one of those things that I see and like, oh.
Yeah.
Do they work together?
Yes and no. I mean, yes and no. I just said it twice, I don't know why.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Ray, next meeting.
Well, I'm not gonna tell you in the next meeting.
All right, so, okay, so.
Let's look at a
If we
calendar.
look at the calendar and we're talking a week or two, are we wanting to meet then a month from now, which would be April 7th?
Remember, on the 14th and 16th, a number of people in this room will be in budget committee meetings.
Oh, we will?
Yeah,
So let's not get it anywhere near the 14th, 16th, should be busy enough then. On April 1st, you're having a work session with Jensen Strategies about the city manager search. So I guess,
When do you imagine that I would imagine this group would want to meet after the smaller group meets to kind of discuss and have a little more knowledge of what we're doing. Would we be able to have that kind of done by the 7th, do you believe?
yeah, we should know more by the 7th of April, because I'm gonna redraft this letter and send it to you and Mayor and Tanny and Ed tomorrow, late afternoon, probably, before the
Okay.
council meeting tomorrow night. I'll have a draft to you.
Yeah.
You guys were really fast last time, get something out by Thursday. And then we sit back and see if anybody
Yeah.
raises their hand and wants to talk.
Does April 7th work?
It's clear for our calendar. Victoria,
yeah, I'm good.
Going once, twice, all right,
All right.
April 7th.
April 7th. Okay, with that, I would.
Make a
love
motion to adjourn?
to hear a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?